Hello, and thank you so much for joining us on At Issue. I'm H. Wayne Wilson, and we're going to be talking about higher education in the state of Illinois, specifically in Normal, Illinois, where that university, as well as other four-year state schools, face as much as a 31.5% cut in state aid. We'll find out what impact that will have and talk about other issues with the relatively new president of Illinois State University, Dr. Larry Dietz. 1 year in the position?
Yes, just slightly over that. Yes.
And but you came up through the ranks at various schools. A little bit of background.
Right. Well, I've been here for 4 years. I'll start my 5th year in June. Last year as president. Prior to that, I was the vice president for student affairs. I've served in similar administrative roles at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, University of Missouri in Kansas City, Iowa State University, and so I've been around the fiscal barn and the higher ed barn for a number of years. But where I am now is a wonderful place, and those other places are wonderful too. But it's been great to serve Illinois State.
And not to do any disrespect to the Redbirds, but we're both Salukis.
I finished my undergrad degree there, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Very seriously, you and other presidents of universities in Illinois face a critical juncture. The governor has suggested, we don't know what the legislature may do, but as much as a 31.5% cut. Right. How much might that impact you?
Well, I'm on the phone about once a week with all the presidents and chancellors of all the public universities, and mainly we were trying to prepare each other for the recent appropriation hearings in Springfield. I testified before both the House and the Senate appropriation committees, and most of the other presidents and chancellors have done the same by now. The 31.5% would have a dramatic impact on us, but we also understand that the governor is starting a conversation. And he certainly has started one, and so we're interested in being a part of that, and that was part of my comments at the hearings to talk about the potential impact of all of that and how dramatic it would be. And so every institution has their story to tell, but all of them would tell a pretty dramatic story about the impact of basically losing a third of our state appropriations.
And how much is state funding for the total budget right now?
Our budget, state funding represents about 18%, only 18%, but that's still $74 million. And so 31.5% of that's $23.3 million, and that would be a significant cut for us or for anybody. But we do appreciate the fact that we have the 18% or have had the 18%, and so we'd be hard put to come up with all of that $74 million, and let alone losing a third of it potentially for next year.
And that 18% is actually a lot lower than it used to be when you and I were going to.
Oh, heavens, yes. I remember when I was an undergraduate several decades ago, but nevertheless, the state was coming up with around 75–80% of the entire cost of education. Now we're down to 18%, and so the shift of that has been away from the state and basically onto the backs of students and their parents predominantly, and more and more students are having to look for financial aid to help them out to meet the financial needs and so forth, and so but it has gone down pretty dramatically.
You no doubt have groups of individuals who are looking at various scenarios depending on what the legislature does.
Right.
What will be impacted?
Well, looking at each of these individually, if we were looking at the number of courses that we would have to reduce to accommodate for that cut, it would be about a quarter of all of the courses that we offer would be eliminated from our offerings. What that would mean is it takes students now 4 years to graduate, thereabouts. That would be pushed to 5 or 6 years because they potentially couldn't get the courses that they need to graduate. For that individual, that holds them out of the labor force for a year and adds another year of cost onto their education. If we were looking at taking the reduction in terms of additional funding that we provide out of our own budget to help needy students and to help merit-based students, That would impact about 5,000 of our students. We'd have to reduce their financial aid package out of institutional coffers that we now fund. If we were looking at student jobs, we would eliminate practically all of our general revenue student jobs on the campus. If we were looking at tuition as a sole factor to increase, that 31.5% would result in a 14% tuition increase. If we were looking at the impact on faculty and staff positions, it's close to 400 faculty and staff positions we would potentially lose. The reality is that if we were forced into doing that, we wouldn't take just one solution and say that we're going to raise tuition 14% or reduce 400 faculty and staff. It would be a combination of a lot of different things. And at the top of that list is that we would continue to defer maintenance that's needed on buildings. So it would be the non-people part of the enterprise, and then we would go down the list.
So a combination of things,
Right,
but
right.
how much will attrition impact this? You're going, I mean, every year you naturally lose some
Sure.
faculty and staff.
Yeah, if we were looking at the attrition piece, that's where we would go first in terms of reduction of faculty and staff. We already have a hiring freeze on, and I personally review every position that becomes vacant. We have roughly 3,200 employees at the university, and I personally look at every position that becomes vacant and decide whether or not that's an essential position. Probably the most essential position is the individual who works in the physical plant and watches the boiler gauge to make sure that the whole place doesn't blow up. But beyond that, we are looking very carefully as all the department heads, all the deans, and all of our vice presidents, and they're all making recommendations on each individual position. But attrition is the most humane place, to take those kind of cuts and not replace those people.
Is there any differentiation between capital and operating funds with regard to the state funding?
Sure. The operating dollars are really where most of this would come from. All of our state appropriation goes to pay salaries, for example. We don't pay utilities out of that. We don't pay anything really other than salaries. And so the people part of our enterprise is the biggest expense because we are a people enterprise. And so the capital side is a different issue, and the state right now is not dealing with capital issues at all during this session.
You've had some success recently in raising funds.
Right.
You raised about almost $20 million last year. That
Right.
was $6 million more than the year before. And
Right.
this year?
We're a tad over 30 million, so we're really trying to help ourselves, and we've been doing that for some time. I'm delighted about the activity that's going on the campus, and our donors have been very generous. We are very proud of the alumni involvement that we have on the campus, and they're giving us our due by writing checks as a result of our success on the academic side, on retention side, graduation. Our rankings in U.S. News and World Report have gone up. We're number 74 in the country now, top 10% of all public universities in the nation. We're in that group. Top 25 Money Magazine Best Value for an Education, or as they call it, the best bang for the buck, kind of an institution. We're on the Kiplinger Letter list as an excellent institution, and so our alums are appreciating that and are writing checks to that effect, and so we appreciate that very much. But they want to give money. Donors want to give money for program enhancement and for new initiatives. It's a hard sell to tell a donor that you really want them to help you pay the utility bill and kind of fill the gap, if you will. So we'd be aggressive about this fundraising, whether the proposal had come forth from the governor or not.
So really those funds won't be making up for any loss from the state aid?
No, they tend to be restricted money based upon the donor's wishes.
Recently, ISU announced 4 new majors in the Department of Family and Health Sciences.
Right.
Might the restriction of money at the state level impact that decision?
It could, but we go through a review on a regular basis, and the faculty do this by academic program, looking at what is current, what changes need to be made in the curriculum. And we're really looking at these kinds of changes as ways to continue to bolster our enrollment and meet the needs of the workforce demands as well as the needs of students. They also vote with their feet in terms of different curriculum, and so this is really a refreshed way of looking at that curriculum. We hope that we'll be able to attract some additional students into those areas. So enrollment anymore is the biggest provider of resources for the university, and we have to make sure that our curriculum is such that it attracts the students who really want to enroll at our place.
You mentioned tuition. You're at about, including fees, tuition and fees,
Right.
about $14,146 a year.
Right.
That's just barely above the statewide average for four-year public institutions, which is $13,984, I believe.
Right.
However, your tuition and fee level is 64% higher than the national average for four-year public institutions. Makes it difficult to recruit students. I know you're Illinois-centric in student population,
Right.
but how much is that having an impact?
You know, the cost issue is an important issue, but we can't really talk about cost with also not talking about affordability. And the affordability piece is really matched out of dollars that the institution oftentimes identifies as a supplement to federal financial aid or state financial aid. And we've been very generous with our dollars to help offset that cost. The other issue that we need to be cognizant of is that I've worked in both Iowa and Missouri, and we get a lot of overlap applications between those two states. And it's frankly less expensive to do business in both of those states than it is in Illinois, and we're simply a microcosm of the overall economy within Illinois. Several factors drive those costs up. Labor costs are generally higher in Illinois than they are in Missouri and Iowa, and so we're not immune to that. So it is a factor that we have to consider, and we try to offset that with a good financial aid package to those who can't afford it.
Health insurance for those students who take health insurance,
Right.
up 6.9%.
Right.
You bundle that with the state cut, some sort of tuition hike, and I want you to get your crystal ball out, because
Okay.
where is that tipping point?
Right. Well, the health insurance issue specifically, it is a voluntary program. Most of our students and their families do take our insurance because it's less expensive than oftentimes the ones that they would be able to afford outside of the university. So it's a good a benefit for the amount that's paid. It's a good value for the amount that's paid on that. The tipping point related to the overall cost, I don't know that any of us know what that is. As you begin to look at education, I think you look at the issue of whether it is a cost or is it an investment. We know out of a lot of data that's been compiled on this that the individual who graduates with an undergraduate degree will make about $1.2 million more than a person who does not have an undergraduate degree over their career lifetime. If you look at that and you say, well, how much of that will go in, they're working in Illinois, roughly a quarter or a third of that will go into taxes that are being paid in Illinois. So education is really a part of the solution. It's not a part of this cost problem. The other issue is that if you were asked if you would make an investment of, let's say in rough terms, $100,000 to earn $1.2 million, would you do that? I think most people would say it's a pretty good investment. The issue is about all of these costs are front-loaded for the most part, and that's, I think, what people are having difficulty with.
Attracting students, you're fortunate. You've been up about, I think, 300 students this year over the previous year.
Right. We have the largest freshman class in 25 years this fall.
And you are running opposite of what Illinois Wesleyan, Eureka College, Bradley University, they all dropped in total attendance.
Right.
What do you attribute that to?
Well,
Not their losses, but your gains.
Sure. Well, a lot of other public institutions in Illinois have had a decline in enrollment as well. We have not, and I attribute that really to the success story that Illinois State has to tell. As I mentioned, our rankings our indicators are all up in terms of quality. I think people will pay for quality, and I think that's what we've experienced, is that they come to our institution. The freshman to sophomore retention ratio is about 82% of the people that come in their first year stay for the second year. That's 15 percentage points above the national average. Our students graduate at higher rates than a lot of other institutions, and if you're making that investment, you want to make sure that the institution is doing what you expect it to, and I think our indicators are showing that we're doing that. So I think people are voting with their feet and recognizing a success story.
You may be in for tougher times, however, because we are, at best, Illinois is static in the number of high school graduates.
Right.
Some organizations predict it's actually going to drop
Right.
some more until 2020, I believe.
Right.
And there are areas of the country where that is not true. The Southwest is one of those areas.
Right.
The Western Interstate Commission on Higher Education says that Illinois will be seeing a decline in future years as high as 15% in white graduates. So how much pressure does that put on ISU, because you're Illinois-centric in student population,
Right.
to recruit a more diverse
Right.
group of students?
Well, as I mentioned, we have had the largest freshman class we've had in the last 25 years, and we also have the most diverse class in that largest freshman class that we've ever had. About nearly 25% of our incoming students were students from underrepresented backgrounds. I think that's also a good indicator that students whether they're majority or underrepresented, also recognize quality, and they're wanting to make sure they're going to a place that they'll graduate from, get a good job. If they've had to take out loans, that they'll pay back those loans. And our data would indicate that. The national default rate for student loans overall is 14%. Ours is at 3.6. So our students are graduating, they are getting good jobs, and they're being socially responsible citizens. They're paying back their loans. The demographic issue that you talked about is a very real one for Illinois. We are beginning to look outside of the state a bit to begin to recruit a little bit in other states, but we also have an initiative that both meets our diversity goal and our globalization goal, and that we plan to bring in some additional international students that will help meet both of those goals. We only have about 2% of our overall students are from other countries, and most institutions of our size have between 5 and 10%. So we've just started some of those initiatives, and those are beginning to pay off, but it's very early to tell on that.
Let's move to the social side of campus life. A lot of headlines with regard to rapes and alleged rapes and
Right.
sexual attacks. And Lisa Madigan held a summit here this past month. In fact, I think there's a series of summits that are
Right.
going on. There's legislation that's being introduced into the Illinois legislature. Don't know exactly what the final form will be, but what steps is ISU taking to ensure the safety of all students?
Well, she's going to be on our campus here shortly, and I'll be giving a welcome and introducing her on our campus. We're delighted to have her here. One of the things that we try to do is to spread awareness during all of our preview activity and all of our pre-enrollment activity with prospective students, and talk about safety, and we talk about the supports mechanisms that are in place if individuals have experienced a sexual assault. That ranges all the way from investigation kinds of things with our police and with our Office of Equal Opportunity and Equity and Access, all the way to support from our counseling center for those individuals that need some support from that. We also have a strong police presence on the campus. Our police officers have all gone through the academy, and they're uniformed officers. In addition, we have a security force on the campus that are not armed, but these are the individuals who, if a person feeling like they don't want to walk from point A to point B at night, they can call that office and get an escort. And so I think a lot of it is awareness, and then in the event a situation happens, it's investigation and support, and we feel like that we're strong at all of those.
The question of discrimination has been brought to the forefront recently at several universities, most recently Oklahoma University, where a fraternity was actually banned from campus. and lost their national license, as a
Right.
matter of fact. Are there concerns about discrimination on the ISU campus, and what kind of education process do you take to make sure that that is minimized?
Sure. Well, we have one of the values of the university is the value of diversity. And in order to achieve that, you hope to eliminate all forms of discrimination in whatever way they might appear. So we're always cognizant of that. We do a lot of programming around that topic. I was very pleased that in the instance of the one fraternity that affiliated with the University of Oklahoma, that our entire Greek system came together and did a march around our quad in support of our underrepresented fraternities and sororities, and kind of did a takeoff on the Not in Our Town activity. And they did it, we called it the Not on Our Campus kind of an activity in support of underrepresented Greeks. And that generated some additional discussion between some of our majority fraternities and sororities and some of our underrepresented fraternities and sororities. And my bias, I guess, is that any time that you can have good discussion about diversity, about race, about discrimination, that's a great way to start educating folks, because most of these come out of ignorance. And we're an educational institution, so we ought to be on the forefront of educating people and overcoming ignorance.
What's your take on the president of Oklahoma University and the actions he took rather quickly?
I thought it was terrific. I do not know him. I know him by reputation, and he was very decisive. I think some people were concerned that, oh gosh, he might get a lawsuit or something of that nature. Well, in my estimation, it's always the right time to do the right thing, and I think he did the right thing by taking decisive action, and then later on letting the chips fall where they may. But I admire him for coming out strongly and saying, this is not going to, we're not going to tolerate this here.
I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the football team.
Oh, good.
And I don't want to ignore soccer and volleyball, because
Sure.
they deserve kudos as well.
Absolutely.
But, ISU had an excellent fall for athletics. Second in the nation in the FCS series for NCAA. 2 points.
I know. It was a wonderful weekend, except for a minute and 37 seconds. But we're very proud of all of our athletic teams. They do well on the field of competition, and they do well in the classroom. Our students are setting records in the classroom as well. Football team, wonderful showing. It was a magical situation down in Frisco, Texas. We hope for a rematch next year against North Dakota State, and we're going to try to bring it even more fiercely than we did this year. But volleyball was terrific, soccer was terrific.
MVC championships for both.
Absolutely, and men's basketball going to the NIT was a real thrill, and we're not losing very many players on any of those teams, and so we're ready for the next season to start.
How much impact does those kinds of events, where you have a second place in the nation,
Sure.
and you have championships in volleyball and soccer, how much does that impact your ability to recruit or
Sure.
to raise funds?
Sure. Well, there's a direct impact on recruiting student athletes and on helping encourage individuals who are interested in helping fund athletics. There's a direct relationship there. There's an indirect relationship with really the rest of the campus. The idea that if you won a national championship, that your enrollment is going to go through the roof, or overall donations will go through the roof, is maybe a little bit overplayed, but it certainly creates a positive impact, a positive mood on the campus. And the bottom line, when I was in Frisco, we had nearly 4,000 supporters there for the first time that we've ever been in a national championship. That surprised the heck out of North Dakota State, that we would show up.
I'm sure it did, yeah.
And that we would be as loud and proud, and that the team played as well, and that everybody conducted themselves with great respect, and it was just a wonderful weekend. I met alums down there who had not attended anything with the university in a long period of time, but they came down for a football game. And so the amount of pride that it generates, the amount of compassion, the amount of fun that it generates just really is irreplaceable.
Dr. Larry Dietz, president of Illinois State University in Normal, Illinois, thank you so much for joining us on At Issue. I appreciate the update.
Thank you for having me. My pleasure.
And next week we'll be back with another edition of At Issue when we're going to be talking about trends in drug use among young people in Illinois. Please join us for the next edition of At Issue. I'll see you then.